title of this talk that I've given 100 or so times is called Absolute Alignment Absolutely. So are we all good? Raise your hand when you're done writing this. Yes, raise your hand. Good to go? All right, good to go. All right, now at work, this is basically a 6-minute exercise. You're going to get a minute for each definition, okay? So for work, whatever institution you represent, for work, I want you to write the vision of that institution. The vision, okay? You have 1 minute. Thirty seconds. Ten. All right, time. That was the vision. I want you to write the mission of that institution. The mission. 1 minute. Thirty seconds. Five. Time. Vision, mission, values. I'd like you to write the values of the institution that you work for or represent. Five seconds. Time. All right. Life. This is for you personally. You personally, not your institution, not your work, you. Okay? Vision. What is it? What is your vision? Vision statement, you. Thirty seconds. Ten. Time. Mission. What is your mission statement? You. 10 seconds. Time. Values. What are your personal core values? All right, time. Everyone take that piece of paper and turn it over. All right, no cheating. Okay, now I can properly introduce myself. Thank you, PJ, for the opportunity to come and speak to this group. I was one of those people that came multiple times, fell off the wagon, started traveling, so I immediately felt guilt and shame, which is what Christians and Catholics are great at doing. So thank you for that. Unfortunately, I have to give some context into how I arrived at a framework that has absolutely changed my life and then changed the lives of thousands of the most tier one, not just special operations personnel, but every high performer that I've worked with on this, from Olympians to professional athletes, to executives, because our country's not great at transitioning high performers. Like, do we ever ask what happens to a Navy SEAL after they've been a Navy SEAL? Or what happens to an Olympian after they've been an Olympian? We're just not good at asking that. Or the former chairman and CEO of XYZ company that's 57 years old and has 20 years of hoping to give back in an impactful way to his country and his family. We don't ask those questions very often. So this all came about as a result of what PJ mentioned. I was the 20th man in my family to serve in the military, going all the way back to the Revolutionary War. I joined the Navy directly after graduating from DePaul University here in Chicago. Went out to Coronado, and about 2 to 3 years in to the pipeline, suffered a spine injury, and I was out, just like that. So it was a failure in my mind because I had a goal, I went after the goal, I didn't achieve goal, therefore fail. And look, this isn't a pity fest. It was exactly God's plan. I didn't see it, and I can still remember the last moment at Basic Underwater Demolition School for the SEAL community, which is called BUDS. I remember cursing him. I remember running down the beach and slowly feeling some sensation leaving my legs and so on and so forth, and looking up and saying, "You better have a plan. You better have a plan." How funny is that, right? You want to make God laugh, you tell him about your plans, and I'm cursing him saying, "You better have a plan because I've spent a long time trying to get to this point." Turns out he did. So as I was transitioning, I had about 8 to 10 months of rehab at a place called Naval Special Warfare, which is in Coronado, California. They were wonderful. They got me back on my feet, and as I was transitioning out, I asked a very silly question. What happens to SEALs after they've been SEALs? And I was not happy or satisfied with the answers that I was getting. So I interviewed one person deep into their background. It was a Command Master Chief, or an E9. This is pinnacle of the community. Okay, so this is a Command Master Chief that had served 27 years in the SEAL teams. He served at Development Group, or SEAL Team 6, the team that doesn't exist, that we all know does. He had his pilot's license. He could fly fixed wing, he could fly rotary. He had been in multiple helicopter crashes. He had traveled to over 40 countries throughout his career, operated at the absolute tip of the spear. This was a true special operator. And not to mention, look, he's the commercial SEAL. He's tall, he's dark, he's handsome. He is a PT phenom. We looked up to this person. I looked to him when I was coming into the community and saying, God, I want to be that guy. Like, that's exactly who I want to be like. And I got to know this person. He would come and visit me in rehab, and we developed a really close relationship. I went to his retirement ceremony. He was there at the Navy SEAL quarterdeck, dressed in his Navy whites, Big red carpet gets whistled ashore for the last time. It's a wonderful ceremony to watch these guys retire. It's amazing. Hundreds of people were on this platform, all there for Command Master Chief. He got whistled ashore. His family was there. Flowers presented to his daughter. That was on a Thursday. On a Friday morning, he came into the office that I was working out of, and he closed the door behind him, and he said, Joe, 26 years in the SEAL community, what am I going to do now? And he was weeping. I was 23 years old. Day before, pillar of confidence, God-fearing man, served our country for 26, 27 years at the tip of the spear during a time when we were in absolute conflict around the world. How did he go from that to weeping? Well, it's a identity thing, and there's two words. There's two words in this room that if I were to say them, you've all said them to yourself before, and they've brought everyone to their knees at some point in your life. And it's two words that are so powerful, and it's what's next. Whether that be in our work or our life. It's crippling. It can be almost paralyzing when the way isn't clear. And I was the type of kid where I grew up in Cicero and Berwyn area. I went to Fenwick High School. I went to music school in the city until I was 13 years old at Merritt School of Music. Grew up playing classical violin. I was someone I would color code my closet. I would do height order in my room. Music was so beautiful to me because it's something that sounds and represents something on a piece of paper that someone, at some point in time, this is why we call it classical music. I doubt Taylor Swift will be classical music 500 years from now. Okay, so classical music is beautiful because it came from someone's mind and they pieced it together with no technology. It's true human innovation when I look at a piece of sheet music. But there's a sense of order to it. There's timing, it's all beautifully fit into sheet music. Our life is very similar, but we don't know what is on the next page. And it's very difficult to connect the dots looking forward. It's impossible, but it's easy to connect the dots looking backwards. And it all kind of comes together. So that moment at Buds for me, to get that injury, to learn from the Master Chief, to sit with him, it always reminds me of that Mother Teresa quote. You don't have to help thousands of people. You have to help the person in front of you. And that's what I didn't know I was doing at the time with that Master Chief, and I helped him through his transition until he was successfully placed in a job. But what I learned, I became addicted to. This was a 23-year-old who intended to serve, who's now trying to serve in a new capacity, right? Because I wanted so badly to prove to the community that I still had relevance, that I could still fight. And I was never meant to be a SEAL. I was meant to serve the SEAL community. I just didn't know that yet. So I helped that one person. Then I interviewed 100 more. Then I left NSW and traveled the country. I went to 7 states over 6 months and interviewed over 215 operators that had transitioned. I was blowing through my savings. I then spent the next 6 months of 2012 into 2013 interviewing 151 Fortune 500 CEOs. This is where I developed my stalking skill set and diligence skill set for venture. I didn't know it then, but again, we can't connect the dots looking forward. When I sat with them, first the group of community of operators, they all told me the same thing. And you can't see it until you put it up on sheet music, right? So I had all these interviews, I had all these notes. GPT wasn't around, man, so I was basically taking notes of all these conversations, putting them up on like a giant kind of John Nash looking whiteboard situation, and then going through and finding the similarities of what they discussed with me all the time. And it was so obvious. They kept saying the exact same 3 words over and over again. And every single person in this room is also seeking this. We just may not have categorized it this way. Where they all said, Joe, in my transition, I just want to be part of a great team. I want to follow an extraordinary leader, and I want to be part of a culture that's much bigger than myself. How many people in here want to be part of a great team, want to follow an extraordinary leader, or be a part of a culture that makes me feel like I'm much bigger than myself? right? Raise your hands, elbows over here so I can see what the hell's going on. Got it. All right, so that's everyone in the room. Keep those words in mind. Team, leadership, culture. Teams, leadership, culture. Teams, leadership, culture. TLC. Okay? But then, when I listened to those interviews, they kept saying the same thing. They were attracted to the SEAL community. Why? Because there's extraordinary teams. They wanted to follow a great leader. And the culture of the SEAL teams is second to none. I didn't know that's why I was attracted to the SEAL community, but it was. So then I go and interview the Fortune 500 CEOs, because my kind of gotcha question for the Fortune level CEOs that I was trying to figure out is, do you recruit all talent? Do you recruit undergrads and graduate students the same way here at XYZ company? You name it. And they're like, no, we have teams that go after MBAs, and we have teams that go after undergrads, and very different approaches. I said, okay, do you recruit all veterans the same? Insert awkward pause. Do you recruit general veterans the same way you recruit special operations? And he or she always said yes. But there is no difference. We don't recruit communities inside of the veteran community. In fact, the majority of those veteran initiatives are grouped under some sort of DEI initiative, which you can imagine how the SEAL community feels about being grouped into a DEI minority group. But what I did here is that every CEO that I interviewed said, oh, well, what makes your company great? Some of you may say this about your institution or the companies that you work for. Oh, well, our teams here are phenomenal. Right? All hail the teams at this company. They deserve all the credit. Our leaders are great. And the culture that we've created here is very special. Says every CEO I've ever sat in front of in some variation of that. So now I'm like perplexed, because if it's this easy, when I'm looking at the whiteboard, I see teams, leadership, culture, teams, leadership, culture. But I have to organize things. I have to understand it and I have to line it. So teams, leadership, culture. Culture is an end state. Teams follow leaders that develop a culture. So how do we get to this culture? We hear about this all the time, right? I mean, we hear about, oh, the culture here, the culture there. When I hear founders pitching me, we see about 2,000 deals a year. We invest in about 10. And the founders, we have a qualitative lens and a quantitative lens. But part of that qualitative lens is when I hear them say, oh, that's the culture that we're creating here. Or that's our North Star. That's my favorite one. Like, this is our North Star. What does that mean? I will stop them right there in their tracks and say, North Star, what does that mean? Well, it's what I just said, like, it's our North Star. Like, no, define it for me. Articulate it for me. Where are you going from a vision perspective? And what type of culture are you hoping to create at your company? Because the founder's number one job is to be attractive, to attract talent, to attract investment, over and over and over again. So therefore, you have to be crystal clear about certain things. So now once I get through these interview processes and I get this framework, culture is always at this end state. But what I realized is that there's like an equation that comes before you can arrive, before you can attract, forge, and retain extraordinary teams, leadership, and culture. I realize there's an equation that comes before that. TLC is an outcome. It's something that happens only after a leader, a founder, a visionary, goes after this equation in this order. And this is the order that every founder and founding experience has ever had. Every person in this place, right now in this gym, is working for an institution that at one point in time was a startup. Meaning it was starting up. At some point, JP Morgan was a startup. At one point, Citibank was a startup. At one point, Home Depot was a startup. And they all had a founder. And when that founder, because we lose sight of this in America, our country has founders. We talk about them all the time. They wrote paper upon paper upon paper, their words and thoughts and feelings about very, very nuanced topics and things because they knew what they believed. What I had you do in 6 minutes, do you know what you believe? In 6 minutes, do you know what you believe? And it's hard to answer these simple questions. So when I got through the interviews and I sat with the CEOs I kept hearing culture. I worked backwards into an equation, which is every founder at some point in time professed a vision to the world. And they did it over and over and over again. Vision over and over again. I imagine a world where, fill in blank, of every leader and every visionary that's ever walked the planet. I imagine a world where, fill in the blank. The greatest example of this happened in 6 minutes on the Mall in Washington, D.C. in the 1960s, where if you were to listen to the I Have a Dream speech, you take out dream, you put in vision. He spoke on a vision that didn't exist. I imagine a world where, and he even said, I just want this country to live up to what it said on paper. And so what did we say on paper? Well, we have one of the greatest, most duplicated, replicated political documents in the history of the world, that being the United States Constitution. Our founders knew what they believed. They wrote it down. It was informed by the dots of the past. It was informed by history. So therefore, they were crystal clear on what they created, which is why our Constitution is the most duplicated, replicated political document in the history of the world. And it continues to be so. When I worked backwards and you think of founders, they talk about their vision. Once they profess a vision enough, they start to get some disciples. They start to get followers, first employees that now feel like they are on a mission because they followed the vision. They were drawn to it because it was well articulated, it was clear, it was moving. It wasn't mercenary, it was missionary. So they followed the vision. Now you're on a mission with a team. And when you have a collection of people, you have a collection of values. And that's why values can never be created in a vacuum. Vision, mission, values, and then you throw a parenthesis around that, and you put it to the 10th power. The most powerful companies and organizations that I've ever worked with. One of the founders that I recently invested in last year. It was so compelling because he would speak this way. It wasn't rehearsed. He would say the vision that we have for this organization. He would say, we are on a mission to do. At this company, we value this. We imagine a culture where it was already there. There's just going to be a time delay until Brett gets it, until he achieves that. But it was crystal clear. And it's, of course, matched with effective cost structure and, wonderful due diligence of the company. But it has to be aligned. You can't just understand the big dream. You have to understand the cost structure of the big dream. That's what makes a great founder and a great company come out of the gates very effective. So what I learned is that if you are clear on your vision, mission, and value set as an organization, it's very easy to attract, retain, and forge extraordinary teams, leadership, and then you'll have culture at the end. Think of it as a horizontal equation. Every time that I've seen case study after case study from Ball Corporation, the glass jars, moonshine, right, Ball, 150-year-old company, nearly, I think it was a 150-year-old company. It was a $50 billion market cap, and they had around something like 50,000, 60,000 employees. And that's over 150 years. Airbnb was around for 15 years, same market cap, 1,500 employees, and yet they're as big as Ball Corporation. So how does a 150-year-old company compare to a 15-year-old company? Well, a lot of it has to do with the age, the generation, but they did the fundamentals right. They professed a vision to the world, they were very clear on their mission, and they were creating a culture that was obsessive. And Brian, the founder and CEO of Airbnb, I've come to know well. Brian, Nate, and Joe, the three founders, they were professing the same thing on billboards, online, digitally, internally, externally. They were aligned absolutely from what they were professing, up down the organization. So that's what made them an incredibly powerful team, along with market timing and all these other things. But you can't bring something to market unless it's crystal clear. So back to the Honor Foundation. I was founder, I was CEO for 5-6 years before I moved into venture. But until I figured this out, as soon as I figured this out, fundraising went up and to the right. Talent, attraction went up and to the right. We went from 3 employees to 30 employees. We went from a $500,000 million operating budget to a $3 to $4 million operating budget. You've all heard this. It took me 3 years to raise my first million. It took me 1 year to raise the next 3. And I can pinpoint it exactly to the time where I started to say things a little differently after learning these lessons. Vision. We imagine a world where 65,000 special operators can experience a seamless transition. We know that's unrealistic. We know that's impossible. There's no way that they can have a seamless transition after what they have done. But it doesn't mean we go after something unreasonable. We're Americans. That's what we do. We go do big, great, hairy, audacious, unreasonable things, and it has never stopped us from trying to achieve something. Our mission, to serve others with honor for life, so their next mission is clear and continues to impact the world. When I started to say the vision, we imagine a world where to serve others with honor, so into values, practice artistry, be you, laser focus, exemplify trust. We had to bring up a value set that represented the community that we hope to serve. All the way into my fun, we imagine a world where our way of life feels safe. I want to invest in things that does that. We imagine a world where our way of life feels safe. I feel like our way of life has been under attack. I want to invest in things that makes our way of life feel safe. In reality, our way of life will never be safe. Okay, Reagan put it best, we're one generation away from losing democracy, and he's absolutely correct. The second is my mission, to find, fund, and follow on with mission first founders, so the United States and our allies win. The minute I put these words on paper, all of a sudden it starts to attract extraordinary teams, leaders, and a culture to my firm that I want to magnify. There's a funny quote somewhere that says, there are a lot of people that just won't ever understand you or who you are. Those aren't your people. And Harvard published a study, I'll save you from reading it. It was 700 pages that they could have just effing put on the first page summary, which was two things. What eventually offers fulfillment and contentment in life? It's who you marry, and it's who you work with. They could have skipped the whole thing. Pretty common sense, right? My wife is my partner. She's that time I was blowing through my savings with my girlfriend. Well, she's my wife. We have 3 kids now, so she didn't think I was that nuts. But she's a war fighter. She's not a wife. Like, we've been through really hard things together, and a lot of mistakes together. But we believe the same things. We have the same vision of what we want the family to be. We feel like we're on the same mission every single day. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old. So our mission right now is survival. But but the mission is very aligned. And more importantly, if I were to do this with my official kind of framework presentation, there's an iceberg. We all know where the biggest part of the iceberg is, right? So imagine the vision of work and life is that flag you plant at the top of the iceberg. The whole world sees it, right? It's what you profess. Mission is just above the surface. Right? It's the work we do every day. It's the worthy and just cause that we're on when we put our feet on the ground every day. Values are our highest ideals and beliefs, and they're the bulk of the iceberg because they're beneath the surface. So if you imagine that iceberg, vision on the top with the flag, mission right at the surface because you're executing on the ground, and then everything underneath that iceberg are your values, your core, your highest ideals and your core beliefs. That's what begins to attract and retain extraordinary teams, leaders, and cultures. Whether it be our work, whether it be our life, our homes, our families, and this is certainly true for that classic anecdote story of you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. This is why I try to purposefully avoid PJ at all costs. Just want to make sure you're with me. So thinking of vision, mission, values in our own life, as I come up here on time, this is a very quick way to think about absolute alignment, absolutely. How many people here, by show of hands, elbows to ears, please, so we all can see, How many people here thought writing the vision, mission, values of their institution for work was harder than you thought, and maybe couldn't complete the full phrases and think directly onto the values? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Now, life. Same thing, elbows to ears. How many people found that difficult to write about the vision you have for the world, the mission that you feel like you're on, and the core value set that you carry around with you as your highest ideals and beliefs into the world? Raise your hand. How many people found that difficult and complicated at first? Raise your hand, elbows to ears. Okay, it's about 40% of the room, and then we got about 40% liars, and then about 20% of people that might. There's always what I call the terrorists in a group. Always, it's the ones that dress like us, look like us, but they're just kind of spectating. They're watching. They're not quite sure what to do with this information right away. They're in every single group that I've ever done. I've done this hundreds of times. My favorite groups to do this with are young people, because I feel like you, sir, will have the most to benefit from what I just talked about here. By starting to put and filter things in our lives through this lens of, this is what I believe, right? The vision of the world is, I imagine a world where the mission that I'm on is to light fires so others may see. If I can do that today, if I can light just a very small fire in someone where they may see something that they didn't see before, my whole day energy will be at a 10. Just at the thought of one person in this room walking away a little more clear, and maybe walk into their institution and be like, hey, you know, what the fuck do we believe at this place? Like, what's our vision what is the vision here? What's the mission? Do we have core values? Are they on the wall somewhere? Oh yeah, they're in the HR manual. I'm sure they're up there. HR handles it when they go to recruit. Okay, great, awesome. But are you living it and breathing it? When we think about the difference, there's a huge difference between billion-dollar unicorn revenue companies and how they became that way, and why 99.9% of startups fail out the gate within the first 12 to 18 months of an origination. There's a reason why. There's attributes. And so I had to organize those attributes, those beliefs of these successful people that have moved masses of people into their organization, have moved masses of people around the world, from Martin Luther King to Gandhi to Mother Teresa, you name it. They all did something very, very well. Hell, even Churchill, who could barely speak, for many reasons, was crystal clear on what he was putting out every single day. From the vision of this country, we will not quit, we will not fall, we will not fail. Every day, people need that. That's leadership. It's excessive comms all the time to the stakeholders that you're trying to move and motivate into and inspire into a new direction. So here's what I want to do. The paper is flipped over. Now I want you to watch the power of definitions and the power of being articulate. Jordan Peterson is a cognitive behavioral psychologist. I got to know him very well over the last, 6 years. He said something that I'll never forget. He said, if you want to be dangerous, be articulate. And I've never forgotten that. If you want to be dangerous, part of this young person's life, what's your name so I keep calling you young person?
Albin.
What was it?
Albin.
Speak up.
Albin.
Albin. All right. So Albin has an edge on all of us, and you're the one I have the most hope for, because it's the gray beards and the young bucks, man. I try to go right for the young bucks, because young people, if they don't know what they believe, they're easily swayed. They're easily swayed. Don't go through life not knowing what you believe, not what your parents believe, but what you believe. And for me, this is what this kind of framework does, and the power of being articulate has to do with the struggle that our country has had, is words don't mean the same things anymore. So we'll say something, even my sister, she said something in my kitchen the other day, she's my best friend. We couldn't be further apart on the political spectrum, literally. If Bernie Sanders is left, she is swinging from a rope at the end of the left spectrum, trying to swing further left. And that's fine. And that's fine. And this is the example that I use a lot in my life. We love each other dearly because we believe a lot of what the same things are at the core value level, and we can speak to each other like human beings. But be articulate is a totally different story. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to give you a definition for vision, and I want you to put it at the top of your paper. And this is just for life. All right, so forget about work. This side of the paper, it's about life. I want to give you this definition. I want you to write vision, colon, and then here's the definition. The world we imagine, and hope to achieve alongside others. The world we imagine and hope to achieve alongside others. And now underneath that, I want you to say the following. I imagine a world where. I imagine a world where. And I want you to fill in the rest of that blank. So you've got your definition. I imagine a world where. And now fill the blank in, and you have 1 minute. All right? Fill the blank in. I imagine a world where. And I want you to fill that blank in and write your vision, not your institutions, your vision of the world you imagine and hope to achieve alongside others. 1 minute. $30 seconds. $10. Time. All right. Who would like to tell me? Actually, no. Stand by. Never mind. We're gonna do one more thing. Now, mission. Write down this definition. Mission, colon. My just and worthy cause. My just and worthy cause. My contribution and impact I hope to bring into the world. My contribution and impact I hope to bring into the world. My just and worthy cause. My contribution and impact I hope to bring into the world. Now, underneath that, I want you to write the word to. T-O. Underneath that word, I want you to write so that. All right? 2, for instance, my mission. It's mine. I don't put it anywhere. It lives in me. And when I'm doing it, it's when I'm at a 10. It's when I lose track of time. 2, light fires. That's my contribution. That's my contribution. I want to light fires so that others may see. That's my mission. And when I even get a hint of an opportunity to live out that mission, I jump on it. So with my fund, with the foundation, that's what I was doing. It's an evolution of to serve others with honor for life, so their next mission is clear and continues to impact the world. Let's distill that down a little bit to light fires so others may see. It's an evolution. It took me 7 years to get it and understand it. And now that I know it, it's like a cheat code in life. If I'm with people that don't seem to light fires or want to light fires or have any ambition to light fires, probably not for me, so that others may see. I want to feel that energy from people that are in and around me. So for your two, so that, what would that be for you, according to our new definition? To what? To serve, to laugh. It doesn't matter, but put it in there, write it out. You have 1 minute. What is your contribution, and what is the impact of that contribution? 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. Time. All right, now, write this definition down for values. I can't believe we're actually on time. This is remarkable. Values. Definition. Values, colon, here's the definition. My highest ideals and beliefs. My highest ideals and beliefs that guide my actions and behaviors into the world. My highest ideals and beliefs that guide my actions and behaviors into the world. When you're done with that definition, I just want you to write, oh God, I wish I had 10 more minutes. I want you to write down 3 attributes. I'm going to do it. I want you to write down 3 attributes, characteristic traits of someone who you say I love you to, and they say I love you back. And they can't be your significant other. All right? I'm going to say that again. I want you to write down 3 attributes and characteristic traits of someone who you say I love you to, and they cannot be your significant other, family, nothing. Significant other, family can't be that. And they have to say it back. All right? Write down 3 attributes, characteristic traits of someone you say I love you to, they say I love you back, and it can't be family or spouse. 1 minute. Fifteen seconds. All right, time. All right, I need to volunteer someone to do this now. You, sir. Was it easier, simpler with definitions, or harder than when you had no definitions?
I think it was simpler.
Simpler?
Yeah.
How many people here, elbows to ears, felt the same way, that when you had a little clarity on definitions, hands up, okay, it's 100% of the room, finally, some truth. Okay, we have to articulate things, define things, in order to understand and see them clearly, right? Leadership is about clarity. Jesus was clear. He was crystal clear. There was no doubt, high competence in what he was saying and bringing to the world. There are 2, as soon as I thought about the 2 words that have brought us to our knees, I also thought about the 2 words that would get us off our knees. When we hear what's next and we're kind of blurry about work and life, doesn't matter what it is. This is why PJ and I thought this would be good for the new year. There are 2 phrases, biblical phrases, that now I have what's next. I only have these 3 things framed in my office. These are the only 3 things I have. What's next? Because I think that just is a natural American ambition. Like, we achieve one thing, what's next? All right? To me, that's a very powerful American attribute. What's next? What's next? That's powerful. When we lose that, we're in trouble. So what's next? The two things that are biblical, one is a psalm, and the other one's from Isaiah. The psalm, be still. Be still. There is nothing more powerful in that great book than those two words, in my humble opinion, in my life. When I see those two words, it's like a warm sensation comes over me. Be still and know that I am God. That's powerful. The second one is send me. Send me. And if you're unfamiliar with that scripture from Isaiah, please look it up. Those three things are the only three things I have framed in my life, because when I'm at my knees around the one question and in the thought, I just think, be still. And then I remember who I am. So send me. There's a philosophy in my family about be the one that I talked to my 5-year-old son about. That I think now he's starting to think that he's almost filled with these superpowers. But be the one that breaks the mold in your family of certain behaviors and attributes. Be the one in your family that becomes more clear than any man that came before you. Be the one that sets a new precedent in the home around vision, mission, and value sets. I hope this was valuable. I hate not ending on time. It is 7:25 and 40 seconds in, so I hope this was valuable.